I allowed myself 7 drinks per week. And if I didn't use them, then I could bank them. So then I could store up a bank. So
see, that's where I would get in trouble. I just wouldn't drink for 3 months. I will have 62 Manhattans.
We're live.
For better or worse.
Let's brush it off.
I'm
it was
great.
a heinous setup for this podcast.
What do you mean? I'm in a great mood. Look at me.
It's tough. And I just sit in a chair kind of watching that do his fucking thing. You know what I mean? It's fucked up.
You were sweating a bit, man.
Just Sammy sits in chair side. Yeah, it's fine. I don't know. We have this thing where anytime anybody else shows up to the studio, everything stops working. Like this
I was thinking that too. I'm like,
that's why we never collab with anybody.
Because they're cursed.
I was like, oh, I wonder what kind of equipment they're using. And then, we're going through. I'm asking you what your MacBook is, and like getting all the equipment right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the only reason we use 2 computers is because neither one of these computers has enough USB inputs. That's the only reason. Is like we can't plug
what do
in
you
2
do?
cameras
Do you get
and
one of
one
those?
audio interface.
Is there like an extender you can get somewhere with just like plugins of USBs?
Yes. It looks like that.
Wow.
But USB hubs, like the part of the motherboard on a computer, can really only handle so much data. And high quality, 2 cameras is a lot, and audio is a lot less than that. But
there's a lot of
fucks up computers.
The computer's having to process a lot of information all at once.
Right, and especially it has to do it live for OBS.
Yeah.
Pull this sucker up on you.
This is an impressive setup.
Need them like right.
I like all the tech here.
I'm gonna get a new computer just specifically for the podcast studio, and it's gonna make all of this much more zen.
Are you one of those guys that always was into making their own computers, like building it?
Oh yeah, I mean I've only done it once. Our first studio computer I built.
Okay.
But yeah, that's very like up my nerd lane.
Yeah.
I like
Gross.
shove it up my nerd lane.
Yuck.
I'm not sure how to answer that question, but yeah.
Yeah.
I get into weird projects, and that one's cool. Building a computer is not as hard as it sounds. It's kind of like you got to get 8 things. You got to get like a motherboard. You got to get a hard drive. You got to get a processor. You got to get a case.
After 20 steps, you basically built it.
So it's like you do a lot of research, and then you order everything, and then you just kind of like plug it all in to each other.
So would you say it's like curating a computer? You're selecting what things you want.
Yeah, sort of. But at the end of the day, nobody's going to notice the difference. So it's not fun. Like it's not like curating art piece where people are like, "Oh, that's very tasteful." It's people are like, "Oh, they just assume you bought it off the shelf or whatever."
Yeah.
It's the only reason to do it is cost. Is it's cheaper usually to build your own than get something similar off the shelf.
See, this is what's cool though. Is like you're super into the tech side of things, where like in your partnership, you guys are both. He brings that to the table, and he's awesome at it, and he loves doing it.
Yeah,
and you love doing all the other kinds of stuff.
Not that, all the esoteric stuff.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's really cool.
Like just
like watching Sammy
walking around and thinking, and the concepts for the films, and you know what I mean, and the
yeah. And then
all
Bones
the la-di-da bullshit. Yeah.
You were really calm. You were really calm when we were going through the technical difficulties.
You mean when he was trying to say, like,
you
going through hell? Oh, dude, I have to. I mean, it's
you
most
know
of my
that
life
he's going to figure it out somehow.
Which is, look, there's a division of labor. You know, there's a division of labor in the Bonelang camp, and it's everything technical falls on his shoulders. And a lot of my life has been sitting next to Matt, watching him
figure it out
problems, and then get frustrated, and then solve it, and then be like,
or rage quit and go to bed,
or rage quit and start. So I just got to stay calm as a Hindu cow, baby. Just like.
Well, you were repairing that piano, like during COVID.
I don't want to talk about that. Yeah. So
is this one of those like storming out stories?
Rage Quit. It's like Rage Quit 101 was the piano.
I've actually had like a pretty major realization, and this is something I always kind of knew about myself, except I didn't realize. Okay, hang on, let me back up. We're gonna enter my therapy session now. Okay. So I like weird tech shit. I like stuff like devices. So that's why pianos interest me. They're like really cool. There's lots of moving pieces. There's stuff to like figure out about them. So things like that attract my attention. And I'm also a very phasey person. Like I get really, really interested in a topic intensely for about 3 weeks and then forget about it completely.
When I had Neil Francis on the show, he was reading about the East India Company and the spice trade.
Oh, yeah.
That seems like a very you type of thing.
For sure.
Where you're getting into the spice trade for a month.
Yeah, sure.
And then just...
Oh, totally.
Oh, that was interesting.
Neil's an avid reader. Neil's an interesting guy.
Yeah,
he's a smart dude.
He is.
But so the piano, I like had this realization recently where I noticed I do that with projects, which is just like it's fun. For instance, like I got into cooking over COVID. That's completely harmless. Yeah. I'm going to make some cool shit for 2 weeks, and then I'm going to forget about it, and I'm going to go back to ordering Uber Eats or whatever. That's fine. That's totally harmless. But what I've noticed is I do pick up DIY projects and then abandon them. Like, so I'll get really, really interested in something. I'll spend a bunch of money buying all the stuff that I need to do it. I'll realize either I'll forget about it or I'll realize that I got in way over my head and I'll have to just completely abandon it. So the like really visceral way that this happened is that we briefly had an organ in our studio. Okay. So over the pandemic,
Neil Francis brought it over. He brought his
organ.
True. He brought his organ.
He helped us move an organ.
He brought his dolly over. We put the organ in,
dolly.
and then it never. Yeah, we'll continue.
Well, so our buddy, who's a great sound guy, he's worked with us a couple times, posted on Facebook. He's like, "Look, there's this family. Their grandmother just died, and she's had this beautiful organ." Sitting in her living, like a transistor organ, sitting in her living room since 1965. Like they bought it at the corner store, they brought it to the living room, and it just sat like it's been touched by nobody else. Wow. But these old organs are, they're made out of electronic parts. The stuff deteriorates. Whether or not you use it, it's just like 20-year-old capacitors go bad, and so you've got to replace them eventually. And so they had this organ, and it sounded like shit. Like it just turned on and kind of like growled. Basically, is what it sounded like. And I was like, oh, that'd be a cool project. These people have this like sort of untouched instrument that would be interesting to pull apart and figure out and fix, and then we'd have an organ.
Yeah.
And a Leslie. It came with this like vintage Leslie speaker, which are they're dope and kind of rare. At least the really truly vintage ones. And so it came, and he had this whole idea with the Leslie that he was gonna like modify it and make it MIDI controlled and blah blah blah.
Well, so part of this is the part where I just didn't know what I was getting into. Is like what a Leslie speaker is it's a like a wooden speaker cabinet with speakers inside that rotate, and so that's how when you hear organs at like churches, not pipe organs, but organs have that like kind of warbly sound to them. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. That's because they're running through a spinning speaker. That's what gives it that warbly sound. And so some models of Leslies are really valuable, as are some models of organs. This organ was not valuable ever, and neither was the Leslie. And it all has weird inputs that like you could never plug something else into, so you would have had to modify the whole amplifier in order to ever plug anything else into it other than this organ. It had like this weird 9-pin jack. So it really quickly became a bigger project than I anticipated. And then you start adding up costs and stuff, and it's just like hundreds and hundreds of dollars on this thing. And at the end of the day, what you're going to have is a transistor organ, which doesn't sound that fucking cool anyway. And so it sat in our house for like 6 months. And then over the pandemic, I was finally like, well, I have to do something with this. Yeah. And so I took a sledgehammer to it and broke it into small enough pieces that I could take it outside and put it in the dumpster. So I had to disassemble this 900-pound organ, into like splinters basically, and threw it in a dumpster. And that was like a really visceral moment where you're like, it was like rock bottom with this weird habit
It's
I have of
hobbyist
picking
rock
up
bottom, is it?
projects. Is like, okay, I've gotta get this under control. And at the same time, I started restoring that piano, which is going better, but I'm at my parents' house a lot, which is where it is, and I'm just like, man, I don't know if this thing's gonna get fucking finished. So sorry, I'll wrap this up shortly, but I finally this week I think I turned this franchise around because I started talking to our buddy Tim Sizer, who builds custom bass guitars.
Okay.
And I had this crazy hair up my ass where I was like, I'd really like to build a custom guitar, and so I started talking to him. I was like, yo, would you consult on this?
Yeah.
And yesterday he hit me up and he was like, yo, do you want to grab lunch and talk about this project? And I just kind of realized that I was doing it again, and I was like, buddy, I'm just gonna stop before I waste both of our time. I'm gonna cut this off before it even begins, and not order, a guitar neck for $400 that I then have laying around in my closet for the next 12 years.
Yeah, I can get out of hand quickly,
dude. It's weird how
he's got a mechanical mind, man. Like,
and
when he was a
wants
kid,
to fulfill that.
When he was a
like,
kid, he was rewiring sections of his house when he was like 13.
Whoa.
I mean, under the guise of his father. I don't think he was just like out there with a cool kid.
Yeah, you were joking around about,
but like he's just got this mechanical mind, man.
You asked if we'd added outlets to this room, and no, but that's what you were talking about is when my dad finished our basement, he's like, why don't you do all the electrical work? And I was like 8, and I I don't know. I don't know how I did it. I couldn't do it now, but he gave me instructions and stuff. He's also an electrical engineer, so it's not like he wasn't just like he didn't just throw me a pile of switches and wire,
but it's nice to live with that guy as me because it's like
I would love living with that kind of person.
It's amazing. Nothing's ever broken for too long. You know what I mean?
That's a nice
Our
thing.
landlord loves us because we hardly ever call because I live with like a real man and shit. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be whoever I marry. The poor thing. It's such a poor excuse of like a man. No, I'm playing. I love myself.
That's why I'm looking for women in STEM fields because they have more mechanical minds.
There you go.
There you go.
Smart guy.
Yeah,
you got it.
Smart women.
Yeah,
smart.
I like that you have
smart women.
Your priorities.
Smart guys go after smart women.
Most people want like money or looks. You're like, no, I want a biology degree.
Seriously, man, the older I'm getting, the more important that kind of shit becomes. Like, okay, there's this man named Bucky. He's in my life, and he's my oldest friend's father, and he's kind of like a second father figure to me. And one day he said, look, whoever you marry, make sure she's got 2 out of this 3. 1, see if her parents are still together. I think that doesn't apply so much anymore just because everybody's fucking divorced, and I feel like it's ruthlessly judgmental to judge somebody over there. Where you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But this was 25 years ago. I was like a 7-year-old kid. He's like, listen, kid, 2, look at her mom because that's what she's gonna look like.
I heard that one.
And then 3, which is the shallower of the 3. And then 3,
it's also not.
She said 3. He said, make sure she's smarter than you.
Yeah.
Which is like the main one that I was like, now I'm getting older and I'm like, I think I get it. Like, there's another guy, Rick, my uncle Rick. He's my father's best friend. He's another, like a third father figure in my life, and he kind of had almost similar advice. And through the 3 most important, like my father, Rick, and Bucky, the most common thread, who all have successful marriages, by the way, the most common thread between everything that they've told me was like, make sure the woman that you marry is as smart or smarter than you. And I was like, I just found it interesting.
Yeah.
It seems like, I mean, in the end of the day, like whoever you marry. If you're marrying for looks,
why?
It's just like, the fuck are you doing? It's like it's gonna be gone in 10 years. It's gonna be gone. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
I think of it this way too.
Who can you talk to when you're 67?
Life is all problems. So you need someone who's really good at problem solving.
Sure.
Yep.
Like life is full of problems, and how you handle them is gonna make.
Yes.
What makes you sad or happy or like fulfilled. That's how your life will go based on how you respond to things that happen.
Can't have hysteria when shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
That's not a way to live.
Because it's going to happen over and over and over again.
Yeah, and as you get older, you think about relationships more as a partnership, the way like a business partnership would be. Like people throw the word partner around, but it's like, no, who do you actually who do you want to build a life with? Basically, who's capable of helping is kind of the question that you're trying to answer.
Purely transactional. That's how I'm going to marry. That's
a very Ben Franklin approach. I think he was very practical, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Did he marry?
Yeah, he married, and then she stayed in, she wouldn't leave Philadelphia, but he was ambassador, so he was in...
Yeah, he was banging some French chick.
Was he in France? He was in France, right?
Yeah. He was ambassador to France.
But he spent a lot of time in England, too.
Yeah, he was all over the place.
He was a very practical
fucking other people's wives.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was a pretty wild guy. Pretty revered in American history.
Pretty revered, too.
You know, that Ben Franklin. All right, everyone, this is our friend Rich.
Hey, how we doing?
You'll be seeing a lot of them over time. But I don't feel a need to over-explain anything. But what we're here to do today is we're releasing a song called Gladiator Glory on August 26th. We figured we'd do a podcast, make it public, and listen to the song kind of live on air. Rich hasn't heard the tune. And then we'll talk about the tune and then just keep talking. We'll just keep bullshitting the way we're bullshitting. But we're 25 minutes in, so I figure we might as well start the tune, maybe.
Do the thing we're here to
Play
do.
the fucking song.
What's the name of the track?
Gladiator Glory.
Cool.
Let's hit it.
Alliteration.
Put yourself through hell just to say you did it. Cocktail party podium. Give me my blue ribbon. Put your head between a crocodile's jaw and live to tell the story. Exaggerate the truth, we all do, for some gladiator glory. Stir the pot with all this bullshit you've seen. Oh, what did we concoct? I guess you gotta drink it to believe. Be it love or be it hate, if you abuse it, you end up in the same place. I pray the 8 saints to illuminate grace. Turns out the kingdom of God was within us all along, babe. Be it small or be it great, it first need to exist in order for it to take shape. Shape shift, shift shape into the image of the kingdom of God, little thing. Put yourself through hell just to say you did it. Cocktail party podium. Give me my blue ribbon. Put your head between a crocodile's jaw and live to tell the story. Exaggerate the truth, we all do, for some gladiator glory. Gladiator glory, gladiator glory. Gladiator glory, gladiator glory. Pour up a cup and drink it till the glass is clean. Erode the mind with proud boys and conspiracy. Oh, be it love or be it hate, there's something in the potion that make us choose to side and say that we love and devotion. Tribalize all conversations, put your hate in motion. Throw your 2 cents in the soup and stir the fucking pot. Information age, big data through the ocean. Sell your cookies to a monster for a nickel. Oh, how much you told for your puppy and some pumpkin scented lotion. Overdraft your checking off, fucking miss. So what? Put yourself through hell just to say you did it. Cocktail party podium. Give me my blue ribbon. Put your head between a crocodile's jaw and live to tell the story. Exaggerate the truth, we all do, for some gladiator glory. Put yourself through hell just to say you did it. Cocktail party podium. Give me my blue ribbon. Put your head between a crocodile's jaw and live to tell the story. Exaggerate the truth, we all do, for some gladiator glory. Stir the pot. Put yourself through hell just to say you did it. Cocktail party podium. Give me my blue ribbon. Put your head between a crocodile's jaw and live to tell the story.
Have we played that before?
I don't think so.
I was wondering if we did it like in the car on the way to Summerfest, but I don't think so.
We might have caught a snippet out here one time, maybe. I don't know.
It was a while ago. We made this in probably 2020 or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's been sitting in a demos folder for about 2 years, and we just got with this new manager, and we just gave him access to everything, you know? And he hit us up like later that day. I was like, yo, let's just put this out right now. What the fuck? And so we just finished it up. We sent it out for a real mix. And
it sounds very in the era of after Saint Maker.
Mm-hmm.
You had like, was it $? Satan's Daughter?
yeah, I think it was made around the same time.
Quiche, like all those that you released
Yeah.
like early 2021. It sounds kind of similar in that vein.
Sure. That's when it was made.
streamed.
That would
Yeah.
make sense, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Maybe that's when it was made. I have no fucking idea. It could have been 2021. Totally.
I don't think it was made that. I think it's when you released it, like that early time.
When we release, no, I understand. So like Quiche, Where the Chefs
Uncle
Eat, $,
Rico,
Eyes,
yeah, all
Ugly
those,
Rico,
yeah.
all that kind of shit.
For
Okay.
sure.
I'm excited about it though. I love that tune. What are your thoughts, brother?
So whenever
Sucks. Song sucks.
Why'd you guys bring me in here to listen to this shit?
0 out of 10, 1 for effort. No, I think when I first listened to Bonelang songs, I'm always like a sound person first. So I just like listen a lot to just like how does the sound make me feel?
Mm-hmm.
Like and then I get that and that vibe, and then during your songs you'll be like we're going forward, but then you're waiting for something. You know something's around the corner that like Bones is usually concocted with like a sound.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just kind of waiting for it. And then, so I don't necessarily, Sammy's lyrics are a little bit too elusive for me at first, that I don't pay attention to that the first time I listen. So it's usually Bones comes in, and then Bones has this like angelic kind of like it's coming down, like not lecturing, but giving wisdom. And it's very straightforward. Like everything it's like a message, but it's very straightforward, where it almost sounds like this is what you're supposed to listen to in the song, or like this is what
That's what you're supposed to take
is the
from
main
tune, maybe.
point.
Yeah, sure.
But then it feeds in and it transitions, and then Sammy's just like hopscotching around, like having fun. And he's using all these like different words. What's cool about some of your songs is some of the quotes or like the lines are just like hilarious. And there's like a playfulness with the words.
Yeah, I think
That's more like
something-
down to earth and like
Sure.
reality in a sense.
I think a lot of that comes with just experience. Like I was trying to listen back to some early Bonelang stuff recently, and it's really hard for me to get through because now that I have some distance from my former self, I can kind of see it how other people must have been seeing it. How a lot of other people must have been seeing it. And what I saw was like, what the fuck am I talking about? Like there's just volumes of work from like the early days, 2015 to 2017, like through Venn diagrams, where even I listened to some of those, I was like, what was I talking about? Nothing was the answer, by the way. I wasn't talking about anything. I was just rhyming and like being, playing. I was just playing.
Yeah.
And trying to make it meaningful, but then you get a certain amount of command over your craft over enough time, and the poetry becomes sensical and like and that's when it becomes beautiful and powerful and
Right.
And now I feel like I have a strong enough command where I can make it funny and true, or funny but true, or I can make it kind of devastating and sad but true, or I can make it angry but true,
The word choice is very like it's very on point,
Sure.
Whereas like you're more direct with it, you're more elusive with it. In
For
a way.
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that what you're picking up. I mean, Matt and I, usually I'm writing most of the lyrics.
Yeah,
and he's
to be
writing most
clear,
of the,
Sam wrote all of this, so that's not a...
So is that when you're...
I mean, 90% of the time I'm
See, but
writing
it's like
most
you're
of the words,
using-
and then he's writing most of the music.
You're
but
getting
then
the
there's
most.
crossover.
You're getting the most out of the words that you chose to write.
For sure.
Well, yeah, I think you write a more spaced out style. I mean, I'm usually not barring out on stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I write, like, Matt sings most of the hooks.
Yeah.
And we've gotten away from that so that it doesn't just become a trope where it's like this guy sings the hooks and then I rap 16s, and we're like really conscious of not just being one of those groups. And
That's like
don't believe that we
I really
are
enjoyed
in any way, but
Boarding Pass when you like you just like we were talking about musicals earlier. It's
got some musical theater into it. Bones has a quality like that too. There's a song called "Time Is Too Dense." Oh, you know it because we were filming it on your farm, which has this very like Broadway aesthetic to me or something. You know?
Oh no,
not in a bad. I don't mean
fucking around.
No, not like show tunes. It's like grandiose and bit.
Yeah,
you know,
grandiose.
It's just a man in
Yeah, I have
it's
that
just a
gear in
man
my-
and a piano, but
Yeah.
like.
I have that gear in my voice,
Yeah.
for sure, and like some of this shit. It's weird the things that you find in your own style where you're like, oh, I bet that comes from X. It's like we saw Billy Joel for my birthday, and I was like, oh, that explains a lot of the like kind of musical theater gear that I have.
Okay.
Because he was raised on Billy Joel.
Nice.
And Billy Joel is basically musical theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of it. A bottle of red,
Yeah.
a bottle of white.
Uptown girl.
You know, that could be in fucking Greece, you know?
Yeah. I'm sure it is. I bet it is. I bet Uptown Girls is in Greece. I bet if you rewatch Greece right now, Uptown Girls will be right in the middle. It's a number right in the middle of the movie.
So Gladiator Glory.
I'm realizing how cruel it is to make you listen to something once and then ask you to
Yeah,
react
well, like-
to it, because it's like you don't even get to digest as you were saying, like I have the
That's
same
not
thing
how
where
like anybody listens to music.
no.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
It's almost like this relationship that you build with music, and through time and listening to a song more and more, like
Your
you're like,
relationship
oh, I get
changes
it.
with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it.
I
When
was
it's like-
listening. I was listening to. I talk about this band all the time, but Brand New, my favorite band ever. And I was just listening to Science Fiction, their last album, for the 150th time because it's kind of like comfort food for me on a walk the other day. And there's the two songs on the album that I always skipped over. I just never liked them, and for whatever reason, the weed hit right that day, and I listened to everything. And now it's like one of my favorite songs. One of those tunes is like one of my favorite songs on the album. It's like years later, you can find something in a tune where like it totally connects with you or some shit like
isn't
that.
that such an amazing feeling? Like right now, I'm obsessed with "Blonde on Blonde" by Bob
Oh,
Dylan.
interesting.
Never really got into it, or never really gave it a chance either.
Were you a Dylan guy
No,
before
not at
the
all.
record, or is this the first like?
Well, so I've been a Beatles guy for so long,
Yeah.
and I would,
Rich is
I
a
know that-
heavy
Yeah,
Beatles
yeah,
guy. Everybody.
Yeah.
but his name comes up whenever I'm like I study the Beatles in a way.
Yeah, introduced him to
And-
weed in an elevator.
1964.
There you go. Told you it's heavy.
What hotel was it? Anyways, so I'm like, I know from their side or their perspective, Dylan, but what's it like on the other side? So I watched this documentary, like No Way Back Home or something like that on Netflix. And then I read his biography recently. And so I'm like going through the discography. I really don't like Free Willin'. The Free Willin' one is good.
Yeah.
But then I'm super into Bringing It All Back Home, Highway 61 Revisited, and then now Blonde on Blonde. It feels kind of like the Beatles' Rubber Soul, Revolver, Sgt. Pepper's, where it's like
Interesting.
apex and
Yeah.
just like they're at their height of their talent and power and everything. So listening to that, it feels. I would listen to it. I just never got into the songs, but like repetition, I'm like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
crazy.
I can't stop listening to this. Yeah.
I'm not really a Dylan guy myself, but it's one of those. There's a couple that I know that I'm wrong about. Like, I don't like Bob Dylan, but I know that I'm wrong. Like, he's too legendary and important to people for that analysis to be it.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah.
That's dumb. And I have a similar thing with Hendrix where I don't dislike Hendrix, but I don't, it doesn't like turn me on the way it does with a lot of people. And again, I know I'm wrong. I know I just haven't been in the correct situation or lived the right experiences for it to melt in. But I'm wondering, Sammy had a similar thing where like he fucking hated Bruce Springsteen growing up. And all right. That was pretty good. But our buddy played Nebraska for him in just like the correct circumstances, and that's a gorgeous record, and it's really
It's now
stripped
in
down.
my-
and
That's
it's
like the very
not-
poetic
it's not the
one.
thing
Like,
you just
it's
did.
very-
yeah,
yeah,
it's like
yeah, yeah.
very introspective.
So in the biography with Dylan, I think he handled his like later part of the career not well.
I mean,
lot
he's currently not handling it well. He's still not handling
But like
it well.
Bruce started getting on his corner as like the American folk kind of blue collar kind of guy who's singing.
My bad. I
You
just
up
needed
or
a little
down?
down. My bad. I should have just asked instead of interrupting your story. Go ahead.
That was about it. You're saying
break
that
him?
you didn't like Springsteen, but then you listened to Nebraska, and that one's a little bit more.
Yeah, it's
poetic
now in
and
my
stuff.
10. Now that album is in my like top 10 all time. And,
Really? Oh.
and
It
I
was a
also
very good record.
it also broke open the rest of Springsteen. Like I went back to like Born in the USA and all these other these other records, and I totally got it. It just like broke through, and now I love the boss, love him, listen to him on my own all the time.
Really?
It's fucking weird, right? Dylan happened in a similar way too. I
Yeah.
did not understand his genius till I was like 27. And then all of a sudden, I just smoked weed with my homie, and he played me the right tune. Man, I can't remember the name of the tune, but
it's the like 13-minute one, right? Is it the new one?
The new one was amazing. So he put out an album called Murder Most Foul, I think in 2020 or
That shit is
2019,
dope, yeah.
2020, 21. And it's like this 14-minute tune. And it's amazing. It's just great American poetry over this really
Yeah.
simple backdrop. And I was like, I want to do this. I was in the car with the boys. I remember we were on the road, and I was like, guys, we got to do one like this. Just let me go for like 14 minutes.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, yeah.
No. You guys do nothing, and I'm going to do everything for 15 minutes.
Well, that's something I always think about, because then in the book they're talking about how like the Beatles, they would just come and like hang out in the studio. So like, oh, Ringo and John. Ringo and George are hanging out with Bob, and George will come, and then John and Cynthia, they're all just like hanging out. And it's like, you think back to that time, or to any time really before this like digital era we live in, and just like, what was that like? What was that like with all of them together? And like,
Yeah, we were,
the recordings, that's why I think Bob Dylan, they had all these like, he must have had a recorder around or something, but that's how they got all these like bootlegs of him just jamming with people. It's so cool.
Sam and I both on different nights worked for the same band. We were sound teching for a band called Dumpstafunk.
Well,
are you
see,
familiar?
Yeah, it was Seeley.
Yeah. So do you know any of the lore of Dumpstafunk?
I know there is lore.
Yeah, so there's
much lore.
Much lore.
two of the most influential funk bands out of New Orleans are the Meters and the Neville Brothers. And I always forget, I think it's Aaron Neville was in both.
Okay.
But the Neville Brothers is like this huge New Orleans institution, and children of two of the Neville brothers are in Dumpstafunk.
Ian Neville?
Yeah, Ian's the guitar player.
grandson.
He's
Okay.
youngish, and then Ivan Neville is the keyboard player, and he's good friends with Keith Richards. Yeah, it's fucking wild. And so I'm not gonna give away any classified stories, but he's got all this crazy knowledge, and it's just interesting to like. Sometimes the stories don't even have a point. It's just crazy to listen to him talk about like, yeah, we went
These
over
two
there
were in
and
the
then,
same
like,
room together.
Yeah, it was
And
like,
your all you have to do is let your imagination go of like, what would have that been like? That would have been so cool.
yeah, and it's again sometimes it's not even a story. It's just like, yeah, we were there, and then Mick walked
We
in, and
were
you're
there,
like,
yeah.
he's talking about Mick Jagger. Holy shit.
yeah. It's funny. I was in the van with them the other day, and I'm just driving them, shutting the fuck up, just chilling, just like. But I love it. They're really interesting guys, and they like to talk. They'll get going,
Yeah.
and they'll talk, and they'll tell you great stories, or just rehash stuff with each other, and like you're not even there, and just
Yeah.
And they kept mentioning this guy George through a story, and then halfway through, I was like, they're talking about George Clinton. You know what I mean? I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Oh my God, like these guys, I forgot
Yeah.
you, like, I'm in a car with, they're just legends, man.
Yeah.
Guys like that are like,
They're so heavy to go. Like if you guys Google Tony Hall bass, he's the bass player for Dumpstafunk, and
Okay.
it's just like the credits are ridiculous. I can pull it up actually if you want, but it's just like he's played with Bob Dylan and Jewel and it's just like
Bonnie
this massive
Raitt and
paragraph of
fucking-
like he's played on all these people's records or toured with
Wow.
them and stuff. It's really fucking cool.
badasses, man.
Wow.
Wasili's out there living that life right now. He's doing
Yeah.
great. It's inspiring to see. They're a fucking cool band. They're really sweet guys.
It was so fun. I was in Brooklyn in February, and the reason I went out there was to support Colin O'Brien, drummer, and Neil Francis. So they played at Music Hall of Williamsburg. So we went to that show, and they just crushed it. It was like this magic in the room. And I was with my friend Carlita, and she's like, "Oh, Dumpster's Funk is playing at Brooklyn Bowl tomorrow. You want to go?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's go." So then we went there, and then we're all at Brooklyn Bowl, and they just like crushed it. And there's people there wearing like New Orleans shirts, things like that. And
It's full on, man.
then we just went to this like dive bar afterwards, and like with Celie and the band, we all hung out, and we just thought it was so cool. How like when you're with people that you like, from say Chicago, but you are all physically
in a different city,
different city in another space.
It heightens the experience.
It's an incredible experience.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, we're all here
Yeah.
together.
It's so much fun. Yeah, we had a similar thing with
surreal.
We went to London, and we happened to be in the city at the same time as our buddies Ravi and Rudy.
And Dom.
Yeah, and Dom, and met up at a bar, and it's just like, on a Tuesday in Chicago, it'd be like, "Hey, what's going on?" But then you show up in London, everyone's like, "Oh, look who it is!"
We got fucked up. That was amazing. It does. It heightens the experience. I love the feeling of being somewhere else. It's just that'll always be like a chase for me.
Yeah.
I have that thing. I don't like to be in Chicago for too long at one time. But then when I'm away from it for long enough, more than like 2 weeks, I'm ready to come back.
Yeah, you totally.
I'm just like, I just want my studio. I want my comfort. I want my work and my,
Yeah.
There's something about the time that I spend in this city is always like, I've kind of stopped having too much fun here, but I mean that in a good way. Like when I'm in Chicago, it's like, all right, well, that's real life Sammy then. So it's put your head down, be in the studio,
go to the gym, sleep normal
go,
hours.
I get that.
Yeah, and like don't stop partying. You know, so I've cut most partying out of my life at this point.
Yeah.
It's every now and then I get slip, trip, and fall in a puddle of alcohol. You know what I mean?
But you also, you also. So me too. I'm trying to figure out this balance of like when I do go out and like have fun, I'm also like kind of working. Like I'm still learning but the experience is just different. Like the learning environment is different. And if I cut that out, I'm like also kind of missing that part of it in a sense.
If you cut what out? If you cut out the
social,
learning portion?
are we talking about the social aspect or the party aspect?
Oh, I see.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, I feel you. If I go out, I try to just make it a show, go to a show, see some homies play, something like that. I try not to just go.
Yeah, and then you can tell
stop
yourself you're
pounding liquor at a
networking.
bar. Yeah, you can tell yourself. I'm
You're
terrible.
like, I met a talent buyer. So this is a write-off for tax purposes.
I'm terrible with the networking.
I kind of do that too.
I
have a reason. Like if my friend's DJing at Arbella in River North, or like Bonzo Squad at a live one,
or something,
something like that, or a show that's like Wasili's having funk party at Shuba. So it's like, okay, on that day I'll go out that day and make it a special day and
make it count.
Make it count.
Make it and earn it.
Earn it.
For sure.
Right. There was just so many years in my life where I just didn't. I was like, oh, it's Tuesday. Like, what's the bit? There's at
Shane
Sunday
Gillis.
there's football on, and then it's Thursday. It's Thursday. There's no football on, so it's time to drink. You know what I mean? It's like just any excuse to drink, any excuse to not be at home.
There's always
and that shit,
an excuse. There's always
the older I'm getting, the more I can't handle the next day.
Yeah,
I can't handle it.
I get that.
I die. I just lose a day. I'm just like a vampire, just in a dark room. And so it's for me, it's like a bargain with the future.
So
I mean?
I did this thing back in 2019.
Is this your counting drinks thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I
let them know.
What I like to do. This friend of mine, we met up, and he told me this dream he has like twice a year, where he's in an airport hangar, and it's like, big, very, very large. And he sees these figures up ahead. There's like 4 of them, whatever. And he skateboards to them. So he's skateboarding. As he gets closer, he sees they're all his former selves at different ages. And so they're all asking him questions about what life is like. And so there was this conversation between all of them. So I kind of do that. I kind of stole that, and I think back to ages, and I get advice from them and like what they were doing, and I learn from like what was going on and what I learned at that moment in life, and then I just kind of apply it. So right now I'm looking.
So you get advice. You, present Rich, gets advice from
by talking.
Younger Rich.
Yeah, not like advice like. It's
listen, old man.
there's no 2 people or this weird thing like that.
Okay, I see.
For me, it's not my dream, right? But I like think back to that age and it was like, what was I going through? What did I learn? How can I apply it now? And I'm getting really into my 2019 like self and that life and how I was so able to like balance everything. And that was probably the happiest I'd been. Like,
that's interesting.
Probably the happiest year of my life, potentially. And I allowed myself 7 drinks per week. And if I didn't use them, then I could bank them. So then I could store up a bank. So
see, that's where I would get in trouble. I just wouldn't drink for 3 months.
Right, but you can save it up. You can do whatever you want.
In one epic binge.
Yeah. See, but the
Rich,
whole
Rich, it's called binge alcoholism.
I will have 62 Manhattans.
But I'm not someone that wants to take like a month off sober. Like that's just not my style.
Sure.
So it's like if I have 7 per week, I'm very intentional, or I was very intentional about, how to use them. I would use them specifically. Or I would think down the line, like, oh, I got something coming up. I'm going to want more. So I'm going to chill out a little bit. It's just like, it was kind of fun to me. It was like this game.
Yeah, that's cool.
But then COVID happened, and I was like, that kind of
went
out the window.
The only place that's open is the liquor store. I guess I'm going to the liquor store.
Oh, man, the first few months of quarantine for Matt and I.
Oh, God, dude, we just ate pancakes and drank Dewars.
It was crazy. It's so weird. We would get up and make what was the weird ass pancake phase? What was that?
Well, it was just because we were
slamming
storing
flapjacks, just slamming them.
Okay.
Well, we stocked up on non-perishable items, so you get like a can of peas, and some like frozen meat and stuff. But then at the end of the day, you're sitting there with like mandarin oranges. Like, I'm not going to eat all of this shit. Let's eat the pancakes. That sounds delicious.
Campbell's mushroom soup.
Yeah.
You're like, I'll pass.
Yeah, we still have all that shit. We got a bunch of powdered milk that we're never going to use.
It was when it was like batten down the hatches kind of quarantine. And we
But
just
now
we
it
got
feels
so
like-
drunk for like 3 months.
I feel
but
like
we worked our
now
asses off too.
we're, same here.
We
And
wrote
it was
an
like,
insane amount of music in the first like 3 to 4 months of
I got, so here's why I'm looking back to 2019 is I feel I've become like way too rigid and way too like, I'm literally working all the time. And I'm not as happy as I used to be. So it's like, wait, what was I doing when I was happy? How was I working? How can I get better at this? And then right now too, just like taking a step back, the COVID part is kind of phasing out, or like the initial part of it. I think this will have like ripples, on. And like 50 years from now, people will look at 2022 as like still being very close to that immediate ripple. But now it's like, okay, what behaviors and habits did I pick up? I got to work on those and get better at those things.
For sure.
So I think I might go back to the
attest to that.
7 drinks.
That's cool. It's a good framework. I like
But
it.
it's 7 because according to I Googled the like how many drinks per week or whatever. And it said like CDC or doctors, it's like 7 for women and 14 for men. And I was like, I bet I can do 7. So I went 7.
So you drink like
But
a
now,
woman.
but I'm like,
So you drink like a bitch.
but what I did notice, so I only get 7, so I'm not going to drink a beer. What I do is get really strong cocktails.
Yeah. I'll have seven doubles.
Seven triples.
I love a cold beer
No,
from
yeah.
time to time, but I can't drink beer regularly anymore.
Yeah, me too.
I just can't. It's just like I drink one beer and I'm like,
Just feel fat as fuck. Yeah.
I'm at like station and I sample all the beers and I'm just like, none of them do it for me right now. And then I like feel that too.
Yeah, for sure.
I've been on the seltzer kick.
There you
Hell
go.
yeah, dude. It's a great trend. I'm glad that seltzers are everywhere now.
That's the future.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what is it? Ethanol, just pure ethanol,
And like
some
close
carbonated
soda,
water.
basically.
flavorless alcohol.
Carbonated alcohol.
It's so weird,
I'm here for it.
but it plays. Why don't we spin the tune one more time?
Yeah,
Doesn't have
let's
to
do
be
that.
in the podcast.
Sure,
but
let's
maybe
play
we
it.
can.
Let's play it.
Let's play
Oh,
it.
yeah, sure.
It can stay in the podcast, so we can just keep playing it in the podcast. It's really
Well,
fucking
if
better.
you're listening, you're about to find out whether we left it in or not.
Gladiator Glory.
Gladiator Glory, August 26th.
Yeah, fuck it. If you guys don't want to listen again, then skip ahead 4.5 minutes.
Yeah, there you go.
Here we go.
Put yourself through hell just to say you did it. Cocktail party podium, give me my blue ribbon. Put your head between a crocodile's jaw and live to tell the story. Exaggerate the truth, we all do, for some gladiator glory. Stir the pot with all this bullshit you've seen. Oh, what did we concoct? I guess you gotta drink it to believe. Be it love or be it hate, if you abuse it, you end up in the same place. I pray the 8 saints to illuminate grace. Turns out the kingdom of God was within us all along, babe. Be it small or be it great, it first need to exist in order for it to take shape. Shape shift, shift shape into the image of the kingdom of God, little thing. Put yourself through hell just to say you did it. Cocktail party podium, give me my blue ribbon. Put your head between a crocodile's jaw and live to tell the story. Exaggerate the truth, we all do, for some gladiator glory. Gladiator glory, gladiator glory. Gladiator glory, gladiator glory. Pour up a cup and drink it till the glass
That break with a
is
little production
clean.
detail our mix engineer threw in. We've like kind of alluded to those on the podcast. Sometimes he just makes a little creative decision.
With proud boys and conspiracy. Oh, be it love or be it hate, there's something in the potion that make us choose a side and say that we love and devotion. Tribalize all conversations, put your hate in motion. Throw your 2 cents in the soup and stir the fucking pot. Information age, big data through the ocean. Sell your cookies to a monster for a nickel. Oh, how much you told for your puppy and some pumpkin scented lotion. Overdraft your checking off, fucking miss. So what? Put yourself through hell just to say you did it. Cocktail party podium, give me my blue ribbon. Put your head between a crocodile's jaw and live to tell the story. Exaggerate the truth, we all do, for some gladiator glory. Put yourself through hell just to say you did it. Cocktail party podium, give me my blue ribbon. Put your head between a crocodile's jaw and live to tell the story. Exaggerate the truth, we all do, for some gladiator glory. Stir the pot. Put yourself through hell just to say you did it. Cocktail party podium, give me my blue ribbon. Put your head between a crocodile's jaw and live to tell the story. Exaggerate the truth, we all do, for some gladiator glory. Gladiator glory, gladiator glory, and drink it till the glass is clean. Gladiator glory, the gladiator glory. Erode the mind. Gladiator
Gotta pause it before Adele starts playing.
Adele. Oh, because it's on iTunes or something.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a okay.
Yeah, that was a fun listen for the second time. Yeah, you're definitely crisper with your words, I would say. Like watching you guys perform, you guys are really crisp. And it like it's also in the music too with all the words.
My mom has told me off from day one of me with this music shit. She goes, "Your diction is absolutely terrible." Like she can never understand what I'm saying. Could never understand what I'm saying. And I feel like just in the last like few years, I've been able to kind of, even on Saint Maker, like a lot of the times, like even on the verses on Fox and the Hound, it's like, what is this guy saying? But I feel like I'm starting to figure it out.
I think some of that comes from like the fact that we live in our studio, which is a luxury, but you get casual about performance. Whereas like if you rent studio time to go record vocals, you're very deliberate and like, okay, we're going to do this a million times and we're going to go through and comp takes, which was complicated. We can talk about that in some other podcasts, but like, you just don't pay as much attention, so there's upsides and downsides to living in a studio. And one is like, you can get lazy with shit like that because you kind of take it for granted.
It's also just, I don't know, the diction's getting better because I'm more confident in what I'm saying. You know, it's like I have more command over my writing. Yeah. And I used to be a terrible singer. I couldn't sing. So I would scream to compensate. And now I don't. And I'm getting a lot better even live where I can get like really, really quiet and I can like hit falsettos and I can like whisper, bring it down to damn near a whisper on stage. Yeah. And then bring it all the way up to like the top of my range as well. Whereas it used to just be it used to be one volume. I was just going as hard as I could the entire show because that's the only way I could feel comfortable. It was like, well, as long as I'm going crazy, then I'm being entertaining. Yeah. Which is, I think, what a lot of young performers suffer from, especially in like the rap game and like a lot of, where it's like you come out with a DJ and you're just kind of like screaming over your beats or like even just over your pre-recorded vocals. And it's just about energy. Just keep that energy up. Just make sure everybody's bouncing. Make sure their hands are like this. And like, that's all well and good, but it wasn't going to work for like for our music. Our music isn't that. Yeah. It's boomy and it gets going and all that kind of stuff, but it's like, it just feels like more like a band experience. And it's like me as an MC, which I wouldn't really consider myself.
It's more, the lyrics are more piercing.
For sure.
It's very like...
Well, and I think kind of what Sam was just talking about comes back to your original reaction, which is like, if you're kind of early in your writing career, what you think is like the more ideas that you can get out, the more meaningful the song will be. But actually that's not true because it all just becomes wallpaper. It's like if you say one thing, space it out, and then repeat it, people know what to listen to. And there's a similar thing with performance and energy where it's like if everything is a 10, people can't absorb it. But if you put like weird, like pregnant pauses in your lines or get like uncomfortably quiet and people have to actually listen to what you're saying.
Did you ever study, what's the composer's name? He was like avant-garde, like 1940s, starts with a J.
John Cage?
John Cage, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He was very into
433?
Like...
Yeah, 433.
Yeah, like pauses and every sound
he was
or
so
lack of sound.
He was so into pauses, he made pieces that were just a pause.
Yeah, I actually don't know that much about him besides everybody knows 433. He did a piece on organ that lasts like a decade or something. Have you heard about that?
No.
So it's like, I don't know. I think it's a reasonable musical piece just stretched over the course of like decades. So like there's an organ somewhere and I think it's set up with like sandbags where it's like they put these sandbags down and they hold the note and it just rings for like 2 years. So like this organ is just playing a chord for 2 years on end, and then in 2 years it's
mad annoying.
Move on to the next note. It is one of those things, like art is interesting because there's execution and there's concept, and John Cage is just all concept. At least in a lot of his pieces, I'm sure he
has beautiful stuff, but it's a lot of that. It's kind
the
of like
things he's really known for. It's
very like Dada vibes.
Yeah.
Like Marcel Duchamp, but with sound kind of
yeah,
vibes.
Duchamp
You
is
know what I
actually,
mean?
yeah,
Like very
perfect,
like
yeah.
trickster-ish kind of. Something I've been focused on in terms of honing my live show. Number one, controlling my energy and controlling my breath. Breath control is huge for the kind of stuff that I do. And how I've mastered, quote unquote, I'm still building and
Yeah, how
obviously,
you've
but like the
improved,
way I've really found control on stage is I'm mic and stand now. I don't walk around the stage with the mic.
Okay.
The mic stays in the stand the whole show, and that limits the amount of energy I can put out off the mic. So it's like, all right, I get a little section where I can bring the energy around the stage, but I always have to come back here when it's time to like do the craft, so that the performance doesn't take over or doesn't beat or win over my hitting my cues. You know, which
Yeah,
I think
that's interesting.
happens. So like I leave everything here, and then plus what I like for the words to put an emphasis on the wrong syllable, no, to put an emphasis on the poetry, which is my job. That's like my part of the band, right? Is I like the energy being directed to the spot where the poetry's happening, when I'm doing my verses. You know what I mean? So if I leave it right here, I just feel like all the energy has to come to like this one cone, this one piece.
Yeah.
And I like that. I've found success in it. It's like really helped me.
How long ago did you like really kind of discover that?
It was this last tour, I think, that I really like. Usually I would take it out at least once or twice in a show or something like that, but I found that I don't like it. Like I'm not like a put your hands up guy.
Yeah.
Like I don't like crowd participation, probably because I have like trust issues or something like that. But like, I don't really like that shit. And even when I was young, I remember being at shows. They're like, "All right, everybody, hands up," and I was always like,
No.
"Whatever, bro." Like, and not to be too cool, I was just watching. I don't know. I guess I never liked that kind of shit. So every time I had the mic out of the stand and I'm like running around the stage, I always felt, I don't know, a little goofy. It just looks weird with me. I don't get it. I don't like it.
It kind of reminds me of the like volume thing where it's just like you're yelling because you're not sure what to do, but you like maybe that'll keep people's attention, and that can happen with moving around the stage too. It's just like, what if I run over here?
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be about, if you're really truly compelling.
It should be about what you said. What you put into this mic right here.
Yeah, exactly.
Should be what matters.
We were never gonna be like Iggy Pop or some shit, fucking this raw rage on stage. It's not really that. It's more of like a delicate poetry to the whole thing as a whole. You know what I mean?
And it's not necessary. I mean, it can work. Some people do it really well, and it adds to the show. But it's like it's not necessary. Like if you look at comedians like Sebastian Maniscalco's like running around and doing all these like crazy act outs and shit, but then like Patrice O'Neill just gets on stage, sits on a stool, and fucking crushes while stationary.
Yeah.
Because the material is good enough and he has presence.
It's just flavors, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the lyrics, was it exaggerate the truth for the Gladiator Glory?
Yeah, that's I guess that's kind of the thesis. That's good that you hung on to that line. The thesis of the song would be exaggerate the truth, we all do, for some Gladiator Glory, the Gladiator Glory. Just
all right, so that right there. Now, when you say that, where is the exaggeration, or like?
It's more. It's. You don't got to think so hard about it. It's people,
just out there for you to interpret however you want to.
People, we all do it. We all exaggerate stories.
It's
we
like
all
a big fish
embellish.
story.
We all
add details to make things more interesting.
Yeah. We tell the
Me,
story
it's
with
deer
these
hunting stories.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
We all do it, and there's this one-upsmanship that comes with the internet that I was mostly writing about.
And you mentioned like information age.
Yeah,
big data. I was like, oh, I wrote those down. I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah. It's the song's about information fatigue. It's about
to catch that
kind of faking it till you make
glory.
it, like lying about yourself just to self-aggrandize, to make yourself
for
seem
that
like something
momentary gladiator glory. Yeah.
Yeah, we all just want to. we all want to be the coolest guy in the room. You feel me?
Except the room is everywhere. All the time.
God damn it. What is this nightmare that we've found ourselves in?
That sounds like fatigue.
Cool. Well, that's fucking Gladiator Glory.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
This wasn't really a breakdown so much as like a sneak peek episode. I like it.
August 26th.
Mm-hmm.
August 26th, we will send the pre-save out. Please help us out by pre-saving. Make sure that you're sharing it with the homies when it drops on the 26th. Let's try to jack the streams up in the first week, and we got a lot of announcements that we're not quite ready to make on this exact podcast, but they will be trickling out over the next few weeks.
Yeah, we're going to start sneaking them in.
And shout out Rich Hebron here. You guys will be seeing a lot of him.
My dog.
We'll do a lot more stuff like this. And talk soon. Love y'all. Be
Peace.
well.